What makes a young boy murder members of his own family? It's a query that has troubled criminologists, psychologists, and the general public for years. However, a frightening instance that would later earn the title of most dangerous child in human history was made public in 1989. A seemingly ordinary 12-year-old boy had done a horrific act of violence that would alter the lives of those involved for the rest of their lives and cause shockwaves around the globe. The events leading up to the killings, the psychological elements at play, and the lessons we can draw from this tragic tale will all be covered in detail in this video as we delve into the intricacies of this chilling case. But take heed, this is not a tale for the weak-hearted. The story of the most dangerous child in human history is one of horror and sorrow, but it also contains important lessons about the darkest facets of human nature. So strap yourself in and prepare for a deep dive into a tale that will leave you speechless and haunted. Let's start by setting the scene. The year was 1989, and in a small town in the United States, a tragedy occurred that would shock the nation. The boy at the center of the story was just 12 years old, and he lived with his parents and younger sister. On the surface, they seemed like a typical happy family, but behind closed doors, something was deeply wrong. The night of the murders, the boy had waited until his parents were asleep before entering their bedroom with a .22 caliber rifle. He shot his father first, then his mother, both of whom were killed instantly. He then made his way to his sister's bedroom, where he shot her as she lay sleeping. Miraculously, she survived the attack and managed to escape to a neighbor's house, where she raised the alarm. When the police arrived on the scene, they found the boy sitting calmly in the living room, surrounded by the bodies of his family members. He was immediately taken into custody and questioned about the killings. Shockingly, he didn't deny what he had done, instead confessing to the murders and offering up disturbing details about how he planned and carried out the attack. In the aftermath of the killings, investigators began piecing together the evidence leading up to the murders. They discovered that the boy had been struggling with mental health issues for years and had been in and out of psychiatric hospitals as a result. Despite this, his parents had failed to get him the help he needed and instead had subjected him to physical and emotional abuse. They also found out that the boy had been fascinated with guns for some time and had even stolen the .22 caliber rifle used in the killings from a neighbor's house several weeks before the murders. He had also been practicing shooting in the woods behind his house in the days leading up to the attack. As the details of the case emerged, the town of Pocatello was left reeling. The community struggled to come to terms with the brutal murders of a loving family and the shocking revelation that a 12-year-old boy had been capable of such a heinous act. The boy was tried and found guilty of the murders, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His case remains one of the most notorious in American criminal history and has sparked ongoing debates about the treatment of young offenders, the impact of abuse and neglect on mental health, and the need for early intervention and support for those struggling with mental illness. Following the murders, law enforcement officials launched a comprehensive investigation into the events leading up to the killings. They interviewed family members, friends and neighbors, and combed through the boy's medical records and social media profiles to try and understand what had led him to commit such a heinous act. What they found was a deeply troubled boy who had suffered years of abuse and neglect at the hands of his parents. They also discovered that the boy had a history of mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder, and had been in and out of psychiatric hospitals for years leading up to the murders. Despite these warning signs, his parents had failed to get him the help he needed and had instead resorted to physical and emotional abuse as a means of discipline. They had also failed to secure their guns, which allowed the boy to steal a rifle and use it to carry out the killings. When the case went to trial, the boy's defense team argued that he had been driven to commit the murders as a result of his traumatic upbringing and untreated mental illness. They presented evidence of the abuse that he had suffered, as well as a testimony from mental health experts who had treated him in the past. Prosecutors, on the other hand, argued that the boy was a cold-blooded killer who had premeditated the murders and showed no remorse for his actions. They pointed to his fascination with guns and his careful planning of the attack as evidence of his intent to kill. In the end, the jury found the boy guilty of the murders and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case sparked ongoing debates about the treatment of young offenders, the impact of abuse and neglect on mental health, and the early need for intervention and support for those struggling with mental illness. Today, the case of the most dangerous kid in history remains a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness and the importance of early intervention and support for those who are struggling. It serves as a cautionary tale for parents, mental health professionals, and law enforcement officials, and highlights the need for a comprehensive approach to addressing the complex issues underlying violent crimes. The case of the most dangerous kid in human history has been subject of intense scrutiny from psychologists and mental health experts who have attempted to understand what led a 12-year-old boy to commit such a heinous act. One of the most striking aspects of the case is the boy's history of mental illness. He had been diagnosed with a range of conditions, including depression, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder, and had been in and out of psychiatric hospitals for years leading up to the murders. Experts have noted that the boy's mental health issues were likely exacerbated by the abuse and neglect he suffered at the hands of his parents. This kind of trauma can have a profound impact on a child's developing brain, leading to a range of psychological problems that can persist into adulthood. In addition to his mental health issues, the boy was also deeply fascinated with guns. He had stolen a .22 caliber rifle from a neighbor's house several weeks before the murders and had been practicing shooting in the woods behind his house in the days leading up to the attack. Psychologists have suggested that the boy's fascination with guns was likely a form of escapism, a way to dissociate from the painful reality of his life. It may have also been a way for him to feel a sense of power and control in a world where he felt helpless and vulnerable. Another key factor in the case was the boy's careful planning and premeditation of the murders. Experts have noted that this kind of behavior is not uncommon in cases of juvenile homicide, and is often a result of a combination of mental illness, trauma, and a lack of impulse control. Overall, the case of the most dangerous kid in human history highlights the complex interplay between mental illness, trauma, and violence. It serves as a stark reminder of the need for early intervention and support for those struggling with mental health issues, as well as the importance of addressing the root causes of violent behavior, such as abuse and neglect. By working to understand the underlying psychological factors that contribute to violent crimes, we can take steps to prevent them from happening in the first place and ensure that children like the boy at the center of this case get the help they need to lead healthy and productive lives. The case of the most dangerous kid in human history is a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness and the importance of early intervention and support for those who are struggling. One of the key lessons from the case is the critical importance of recognizing and addressing mental health issues in children and adolescents. The boy at the center of the case had a long history of mental illness, but his parents failed to get him the help he needed. This failure to recognize and address his mental health issues likely contributed to the descent into violence and ultimately the murder of his family. Another lesson from the case is the need for early intervention and support for children who are experiencing abuse and neglect. The boy's parents had subjected him to years of physical and emotional abuse and had failed to provide him with the love and support he needed to thrive. This kind of trauma can have a profound impact on a child's developing brain, leading to a range of psychological problems that can persist into adulthood. By providing children with the support and resources they need to heal from trauma, we can help to prevent them from turning to violence as a means of coping with their pain. The case also highlights the importance of responsible gun ownership. The boy was able to steal a rifle from the neighbor's house and use it to carry out the murders. If the gun had been properly secured, this tragedy may have been prevented. Finally, the case underscores the need for a comprehensive approach to addressing the complex issues underlying violent crimes. By working to understand the underlying psychological and social factors that contribute to violent behavior, we can take steps to prevent such tragedies from occurring in the first place. This includes providing access to mental health services, addressing trauma and abuse, promoting responsible gun ownership, and taking steps to promote a more peaceful and compassionate society. Thank you for watching this video on the most dangerous kid in human history. It's a story that's both heartbreaking and thought-provoking, and one that has important lessons for us all. We hope that this video has helped to raise awareness about the importance of early intervention and support for those struggling with mental health issues, as well as the need for responsible gun ownership and a comprehensive approach to addressing the root causes of violent behavior. We encourage you to share this video with your friends and family and to continue the conversation about how we can work together to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. Remember, we all have a role to play in creating a safer and more compassionate world. Let's get together to make that vision a reality. Thank you for watching.